What are your diagnoses or diagnoses?
Well, I hope you like syllables because there are plenty of them. Um, so, first one a couple of months ago was hyperadrenergic. I can't even say it. That's how that is. Hyperadrenergic postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. And if you want the extra bit, it's virally induced,
Oh, okay.
they think. And last Thursday, I got the official diagnosis of mast cell activation syndrome. So
Oh, I'm
very
sorry.
new.
Sorry to hear that. I also have both, so that sucks.
Complicated, isn't it?
It is. So for the purpose of this episode, why don't we just focus on one, and then we'll
Hmm.
do another follow-up to focus on the other, and then that way it gives us enough time to talk about each individually.
No problem.
Does that work for you?
Works for me.
All
Any
right.
preference?
Well, we can start out with the hyperadrenergic POTS if you like, first and
Yeah,
foremost.
no problem. I know you're a fellow HyperPOTS,
I
which
am.
puts us in the minority a little bit.
It does. I'm actually surprised in a good way that there are other people that have it. That sounds terrible saying it, but just like being
I
able
know what
to
you mean.
relate to people, not like, yeah, you've got it too, but being
Yep.
able to relate to someone. Because I know when I got diagnosed, there was nobody. Like I knew
Mm,
nobody. I was
mm,
like, other people that had POTS were like, oh, my blood pressure is always low. I'm like, mine's always high. So
mm.
mine's different. And that
Yeah.
surge of adrenaline is super shit.
Oh, it's the worst. It is the absolute pits. I hate it. When I had a really bad patch with the adrenaline, it just is this sobering reminder just how bad I can be. And like you're saying, it's hard to share that with other people, even other people that have POTS, because I don't really know many people that have that variant, and have to deal with the immense adrenaline. Um, I don't know how it kind of manifested for you, but for me, I get a lot of adrenaline dumping at night, and that's caused some of the most horrific episodes that I've gone through where we've almost had to have paramedics out in the middle of the night because I've lost consciousness. I've had vomiting episodes. I don't know who I am. It's just the worst and really, really frightening. But in a strange way, it was the hyperpots stuff that helped me get the diagnosis because it was so dramatic when it happened.
Yeah, I can understand that. My adrenaline surges actually happen at night as well, which make it
Mm,
nearly impossible to sleep.
yeah,
Which I've tried to explain to people, and they're like, "Oh, I have insomnia too." I'm like, "No,
no,
this is way different than that because it causes such a it's like a surge of anxiety that you can't shut off. It's like impending doom, and it's the tachycardia and the high blood pressure and like my doctor actually just increased one of my heart meds, so I'll take more of it before bed to hopefully stop that because I wake up halfway through the night with my heart racing. Like
yeah,
and I'm not even having a nightmare at that point. It's just like, I'm gonna die because I'm just going so fast. So I don't know if you
that was
experienced that.
I get that. And in fact, I used that to my advantage when I was trying to get diagnosed because, as I'm sure you will identify with, I got oh, you're just a bit anxious. And I said, correct me if I'm wrong, but anxiety doesn't wake you up in the middle of the night with a heart rate of 150 plus.
Mhm.
And they couldn't kind of say anything back to that. So I said, yeah, this isn't anxiety. This is totally different. And this wakes me from my sleep. And I'm in such a state that I just don't know what to do with myself. And it's actually so I was diagnosed with POTS through my cardiologist. I have an immunologist and a cardiologist.
Mhm.
And the cardiologist I have is a neurocardiologist. So he has a really good understanding of how the brain is actually influencing your cardiovascular system. And initially, I couldn't kind of prove that I had POTS in the first consultation, but he was really good. And he said, "Look, everything you're describing is postural tachycardia, and there's some adrenaline involved that we need to prove it." So I was really lucky that he ran some, apparently they're quite specialist tests in the UK. I think they're done at only two locations in the country. And I was really lucky to have them done. And it's through those tests that they could see that my whole system was just shot to buggery, really. And I had really, really erratic blood pressure. So I was lucky enough to have real-time blood pressure monitoring, and it's highly erratic. And my body just cannot stabilize my blood pressure, but it tends to go higher rather than too low. Um, I have a breathing pattern disorder, and then I have all the adrenaline stuff on top of those things. And yeah, for me, um, the adrenaline stuff, when it's particularly bad, it just is all consuming. I feel so shit when it happens because, like you say, like the prime thing you need to feel well is sleep. And for me, when I have the adrenaline problems, it will last for I have quite a few days where it's particularly bad, and I then dread going to sleep. I don't like going to bed because I'm slightly scared of what I'm going to experience. And yeah, night times are interesting. I'll put it that way.
I definitely understand that. I hate nighttime for various reasons as well. And most of it is because I can't get the sleep. And when I did an insomnia like test or whatever, and I went to a hospital and they hooked me up to stuff, and they're like, you have insomnia because you only slept for an hour. I was like, yeah, because I'm laying down and my heart's racing for a
Yeah.
lot of the time. So I have a question as a POTS patient to another POTS patient. Do you wear compression stockings?
This is on my mind a lot recently. So I don't, but I'm pondering getting some. They were advised that I should have some. Um, I kind of put them off for a while, but I think my hunch is that when I have really bad days where I'm particularly lightheaded and really just out of it, I have a feeling that the compression probably might help me, especially on those days. And maybe I should stop putting it off. I mean, how about you? Is it something you've tried or does it work for you?
I'm wearing them right now.
Yeah.
So the ones that I have actually come all the way up here.
Yeah,
And
that's what I've been told are the best.
they are. Mine are 30/40 compressions. So they're
Okay.
usually the compressions that they give to people that have blood clots.
Yeah.
But I tried like 20/30s and I was still passing out. So
Okay.
the 30/40s, I went and I saw my cardiologist the other day, and they do oh my gosh, poor man table test. My brain says wrong words and then I spit them out. So you basically like do the standing, you like lay down, sit up, and then you do the
Yeah.
standing for like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
And my blood pressure didn't go over 128 over
Okay.
90.
That's
Yes.
okay.
So
Ah,
with that, but also being on a medication, which I haven't met any other POTS patients that are on it yet, called methylidopa, which has
I've
really helped.
okay.
It's a
I've heard of
old,
it.
it's old. It's from
Yeah.
like the 50s. They used to give it to hypertensive women in pregnancy. There is a
Okay.
medication I've talked to other POTS patients about called ivabradine. I believe it's available in the UK.
Yeah, it's used here. I've not been prescribed that one. I'm on clonidine,
Oh, okay, I've heard of that one. Yeah.
which is my first attempt at medicating. I was put on clonidine and oh my goodness me, see, I've got POTS brain. So the other name of another one escaped me. So basically I was prescribed one for nighttime to try and help with the adrenaline dumping, which is the clonidine. And then I was prescribed another, modafinil, that's the name.
Okay.
It's called modafinil, and that was to take at the beginning of the day to try and perk me up and help with the fatigue. Um, I kind of stupidly started taking both of them when my partner had gone abroad to Italy and I was on my own. Um,
Oh,
that wasn't wise. Um, so after 3 days on both of them, I started having total like psychotic meltdown. I was
wow.
having really weird, dodgy thoughts. Um, I'm in my office now, and just like the other side of my monitor is a river. And I had thoughts of just throwing myself in the river.
Oh
Um,
no.
Luckily, I have a really fantastic cousin, and she's an insomniac. So I phoned her at sort of gone midnight, going, I'm spinning out. I think something's really wrong with me. And I was in a real state. And then she said, when did you start taking your meds? And I said, oh, I started them about 3 days ago. And then I went, oh, yeah, this kind of coincided when I started them. And it turned out that it was the modafinil, which is meant to perk you up, is famous for causing extreme anxiety.
Oh.
And I just didn't agree with it at all. It just, I couldn't deal with it. So after sort of 3 days, I hadn't done it long enough for it to be a problem. So I just came off of it and I kind of returned to normal within a day. Um, but then the clonidine for the adrenaline wiped me out for about 10 days. I was so fatigued and out of it. I felt almost comatose. I just couldn't function. And it lasted for about 10 days. But then after 10 days, it's as though my body had kind of finally adjusted. And it seems to be helping with the adrenaline at night. I've had a few nights where I've kind of woken up thinking, holy hell, this is going to be a rough night. And then it didn't quite peak. And I think, okay, maybe the meds are starting to just take the edge off of stuff. So I think the clonidine is definitely helping. But the other one was a no-go for me. So
Sorry, I'm still muted. Talking while muted. Oh no. Question left. Medication. Crap.
don't worry.
Sorry.
How are you finding your meds?
Well, I've been on the methyldopa for I think 4 years. I wasn't medicated for a really long time. They tried me on calcium channel blockers and beta blockers, but because of the mast cell activation, if you have to use an EpiPen, beta blockers make you EpiPen resistant.
Okay, yeah.
So there's that, but there's also both of them made my mouth swell.
Oh no.
Yeah, so mast cell activation and medication, just as like a side note for you, just
Yeah.
be careful. And having that episode that you were talking about actually made me think of mast cell stuff, because any of the antidepressant medications that they had put me on all made me want to kill myself. And it's like a mast cell, it's a mast cell response. Yeah. So that kind of triggered that thought pattern in me, because I've been there with meds and they're like, oh, this will help. And I was like, I want to die. And so I had to obviously stop taking them. And when I started the methyldopa, my blood pressure going lower to like normal, right? I felt like shit for so long. I was like, I don't like this. I don't want to do it. You're so used to having those really high numbers. Like I was 200 over 110. So I was used to that. Yeah. And because of not being medicated, my heart got a little bigger. So it's a little enlarged, which can happen with HyperPOTS. I was actually talking to David, and he also, I believe, has an enlarged heart. We talked about that in the conversation. So that would also be a question for you. Do you know if your heart is enlarged?
I'm fortunate that, so because I went through cardiology to kind of try and understand what was going on, they did a lot of investigations generally of the heart, because the first thing they wanted to rule out was that there wasn't any physical abnormality causing some of the problems. So in many respects, I've been really lucky that actually my physical system is pretty good. The only thing that I wasn't expecting is that I've actually got a valve defect that my father has. So I've got a bicuspid valve instead of a tricuspid. But as far as they can tell, it's not causing any problems at this stage in my life. So I've at least got the confidence to know that physically everything is kind of working properly. And that's what then led them to say, okay, let's start looking maybe at how the brain is communicating with that system. And that's where we should kind of focus our efforts. And, that was then just this eye-opening experience, because they did manage to find quite a lot of evidence that, the brain is actually causing a lot of these problems. And it's the dysautonomia that's given me these horrendous palpitations. I'd had lots of symptoms last year sorry, I live near an airport, so you can probably hear planes going overhead.
Okay.
I had lots of mast cell type symptoms initially, and then last summer, I just remember putting on my bag and I got my coat on. I was like going out ready to just have a busy day. And I couldn't leave the house because I just started having these crazy palpitations, really, really pronounced. I couldn't catch my breath. And I had to sort of put my bag down. I had to sit down and I just thought, wow, I really, really don't feel good. And it just came out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that instance of it coming out of nowhere was a kind of trigger thinking, okay, this isn't an anxiety thing here. This has just surprised me out of absolutely nowhere. And that's kind of what got the ball rolling. And that I spoke to my GP and I said, this stuff's happening. I don't know where to take this. And they were really good saying, look, it's either immunology or cardiology. And I said, well, the heart is really bugging me right now. So let's go in that direction. And then, it's taken since the beginning of symptoms this time around, it's taken about 18 months. And I know that in that respect, I'm actually quite lucky because to discover this kind of stuff, I've already spoken to people where it takes them 6, 7, 8 years plus to get anywhere near the right diet. Even if they don't get the correct diagnosis, to get in the right ballpark is really difficult. And I can only imagine what that's like for you, having had previous health problems. And then if you've got EDS as well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the EDS was diagnosed before the mast cell activation and before the
Mm,
HyperPOTS. Initially, it was just POTS, is what I was told, and then I was like, this
yeah.
is so different than everyone else, so this can't just be that kind of POTS. So,
Yeah, that's the funny thing because I was learning more about POTS, and then you start to realize that even with that, you don't quite fit as well as other people do,
mhm.
and nobody else was describing all these adrenaline things. And it was only in kind of like after a couple of sessions with my cardiologist that I said, look, this is really a problem for me, and this is getting out of control, and it's ruining my life. And I was really lucky that my partner was in the consult with me. Um, and he turned to my cardiologist and said, look, when he collapses, it's really dramatic. His
Mhm.
skin goes grey. He doesn't know who he is, where he is. He can't talk. And it's really frightening and horrible to watch. And my cardiologist was like, right, let's get on top of this. Let's treat this. Let's treat this properly. Let's acknowledge that there is an adrenaline issue here and let's do it. But I don't know what it's like in Canada, but I know that a lot of the medication in the UK, I think it's pretty much the same group of medication globally, but it's used off license in this country, as in it's not indicated for postural tachycardia. So
Oh,
a lot of the
okay.
doctors, you tend to get a better response if you go through a private doctor, because if you go through the national health system, they're really scared to prescribe medication because it's not technically for that condition, even though there's a lot of evidence now that it really helps people with the condition. Um, if I've perhaps seen a doctor through the NHS in the UK, I don't think I'd be as lucky. I don't think I'd get the right kind of meds or have access to the right kind of stuff. So, in that respect, I think I'm pretty lucky.
Do you take something for the like high blood pressure? Are you on something for that?
I'm not on anything at the moment. So the blood pressure is still this kind of ongoing monitoring thing because at this stage, I've not been too low and I've not been too horrendously high. But what they have seen is that it is highly erratic within a reasonable kind of zone. Um, but it's a kind of ongoing thing that I need to just check that I'm not obviously going too far in one direction or the other.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it's still this ongoing journey to understand my version of
Mm-hmm.
POTS and how my body is doing stuff. I also know that I don't know what it's like for you seasonally, but I definitely have more ups and downs during the summer. My body is more erratic during hot weather. Um, I'm not quite sure kind of where, especially your part of Canada. I don't know. In the UK, we get a lot of humidity. I think because obviously in the winter we're so cold and wet and miserable for the most part, that when we actually get sunny days, it's still really sort of there's a lot of moisture in the air, so it's really humid in the summer here. And I struggle a lot with humidity. It seems to really trigger me. Um, and definitely, yeah, summer times are a little bit more erratic.
I understand that. Summertimes it gets really hot here, and in winter it's quite cold. I tend to function a little better at like a medium temperature. Like if I get
Yeah,
too cold, I have problems. If I get too
yeah,
hot, I have problems. But that's also like the HyperPOTS and the mast cell activation have a weird interaction with each other, like with heat and cold and with allergic reactions and that kind of stuff. And heat can actually cause POTS problems, but it can also cause allergic reactions with mast cell activation. So it would make sense that summers would be worse. For myself, what I decided to do, like when I was living in a different part of Canada that was very, very humid, I would actually soak my head with water. So I would like take a shower, leave my hair wet, and that would really help me keep my temperature down in the summertime, because some people don't have air conditioning, and I didn't have air conditioning where I used to live with my ex-husband, so I had to do stuff like that. And then I just started shaving the sides of my head.
Good move. Stylish as well. I like it. Yeah.
But it also helps keep the temperature down.
I like it. Practical and stylish in one. Yeah, that's got to be a winner. That's really great. I love it. I love it. So I literally, I was looking like a hobo this morning. So I actually made a real effort to go and get my haircut today. But I'm kind of in a little mini flare at the moment, and I'm getting really painful legs when I wake up. And I don't have to sort of park too far from my barber's, but it was just one street, but it was like a marathon for me. I was like, right, I've got to pace myself and get there and get back and try not to fall asleep while they're cutting my hair. But I don't know about you, but it's things like that, like small victories kind of really count sometimes when you are so fatigued and so out of it. I was kind of really proud of myself for actually not looking like a homeless person today. So.
Well, it is important to celebrate those small victories, especially when you live with illnesses that affect your energy level. And I think people that don't have illness don't necessarily understand that sometimes. Like, oh, so what, you got dressed? I don't think you understand how hard it is to put compression stockings on, first and foremost. And second of all, like, I actually have jeans on today instead of sweatpants, which is like a big difference for myself. And that in itself is a victory. So I totally believe in celebrating those things, because it's important too.
Yeah, definitely. It's crazy. It's a learning experience, the whole thing. And I'm kind of sort of fairly newly diagnosed, so I'm going through that phase of having to sort of, you can't help but pick apart your history. And you look again at things that have happened in the past. You think, oh, that's what that was. I've finally got some idea about why I ended up in hospital with a suspected heart attack. I've got some idea as to why I've had 2 mini strokes. So all these kind of scary things that have happened in the past, I'm starting to kind of figure out now, okay, I think that's what was going on there. So it's this really weird discovery now of kind of making peace almost with the past and the people that have fucked up and not treated me in the way that I needed to be treated. And then trying to sort of like move forward. And it's almost like this active quest to just find good healthcare professionals, because they are out there. And I mean, I used to work in healthcare, so I was a public health nutritionist for quite a few years, and I was around a lot of medical people. And I think just like any profession, you get some really amazing people that really care and they really want to do the best for the people that they help. And then you get other people that are just, you kind of think, well, why are you doing this job? You are totally in the wrong profession, in that you can't even empathize at the basic level with somebody, let alone treat them professionally. And I just think, I think my experience through healthcare from the inside has made it a lot easier now that I'm on the outside to get the right kind of people to help me. And that's kind of, I guess, you're doing these amazing videos and sort of showing your experiences. And I think long term, I want to give back in some way as well, because it really scares me that I've managed to get a diagnosis this time round within sort of 18 months. And that's only because I've got knowledge. I've got a medical background. I know how to read medical journals. I know how to find my way around that stuff. Most people wouldn't have a clue. And a lot of people, I think, if you've experienced that, a lot of people aren't very good at advocating for themselves or even realizing that they have to.
Yes.
That's a tricky one.
It is. It's definitely challenging, especially if people don't have the medical knowledge. I know for myself, a lot of it happened after my first cancer, and it was 2009 to 2012 to get diagnosed with EDS, and that was
Wow.
like 3 years, 4 years, however
That's
long.
exactly when I was doing my degree, from 2009 to 2012. So yeah, there you go.
Yeah, it took time and it took a lot of persistence on my part, like telling doctors, hey, there's something wrong. I need you to look into this. Oh, it's probably just residuals from your cancer. I don't think
Yeah.
so. Like I had a rash that lasted for 6 months, two different
Mm-hmm.
rashes that lasted for 6 months each,
Yeah.
and no one could tell me what they were. But that was mast cell activation
Yeah.
presenting itself that way. But I didn't know that. So that's a big reason why I started the channel in the first place, because
Mm.
I know it's hard and I had to do it all myself, and encouraging other people to do it themselves is, it kind of sucks to be like you have to do it yourself, but you have to advocate for yourself, and advocating is doing that work. It's doing the research, it's going into a
Yeah.
doctor, it's not letting it go, being like this is a problem, and if they're not listening to you, take someone that will, take someone that has
Exactly.
witnessed like you did with your
Exactly.
partner, because having that support from someone who's actually seen what's happening also helps to solidify it, because I didn't really have that myself, someone being like, well, this is
Mm-hmm.
what's happening. It was more or less like me just trying to do it myself a lot of the time, but having that extra
Yeah.
person there does definitely make a difference.
I think it's a kind of strange cruelty of illnesses that take a long time to diagnose, because the person that really needs the help the most is the person that needs the most strength to keep going and get the diagnosis.
Mm-hmm.
And I just think that's such an unfair kind of position to be in when you're struggling enough with the unknown condition that's affecting you, especially with things like postural tachycardia and MCAS and how they affect the brain. You're struggling to process day to day anyway, and you're having to convey things in an articulate way to healthcare professionals when you're often feeling really crap. And, I learned a long time ago on key appointments to just make sure I took somebody with me, because I'm pretty good with that kind of stuff. But if you're not well, you don't always take everything in, you forget to ask
Yeah.
things. And just having somebody there to just sort of nudge and go, oh, by the way, we wanted to know if this was da 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 da. It just helps sort of tie it together. And I'm pretty sure I'm going to have to do this soon for my mum, because I'm a carbon copy of my mum. Um, I'm 99% sure she's got both dysautonomia and mast cell activation. Um, she's recently started taking antihistamines, and I just said to her, you know what, mum, humor me, just take some antihistamines and just tell me how you feel. And within a week, she came back saying, oh, my aches and pains have suddenly gotten better. And she's on
Oh
101
wow.
different medications. None of them seem to be helping, but a basic over the counter antihistamine, and she's starting to feel better. And then she's upped the dose slightly, and even more symptoms have subsided. So I'm like, okay, this is not just a coincidence here, because this is what happened to me. So she's a lot older, and she's sometimes told, oh, you're just old. And I'm not buying that. And she's not really buying it. So I think my next kind of big victory will be to try and get my mum diagnosed as well. But I know I'm going to have to do that kind of advocacy thing. I'm going to have to go to appointments with her, because even if we're lucky enough to find a doctor that knows anything about mast cell disorders or dysautonomia, they often don't know what to do with you. They don't know where to send you or who to send you to.
Yeah. That is very true. And frustrating at the same time. I actually have a question. How old are you?
So I am sliding towards 39.
You look really young.
Thank you. I think it's the good lighting, and it's the dim lighting.
You don't have any wrinkles. Did you know that there's a correlation between mast cell activation, POTS, and Ehlers-Danlos?
Yes,
Have you been checked for EDS? I'm not a
I
doctor or
have.
anything, but
No, I
just
have, and
curious.
it's yeah. I don't show any particular signs, because it is an interesting one that they're often seen together, and because I've
Hmm.
got both MCAS and POTS, it would stand to reason that we should look carefully at EDS. But um, they've checked, and there's no sign. I do think I'm reasonably lucky with genetics. I think my dad has my dad's sort of in his late 70s now and very wrinkle free, which is quite nice. So that bodes well for me. I mean, he's falling apart in other ways, but that's not too bad on that front. But you know, I'll take the compliment. Thank you very much. I mean, you look amazing for having to go through so much. You always look so cool, and I'm always interested with each video what color your hair is going to be as well.
Well, I look the way I do because of the EDS. That's why I had wondered, because the smooth looking skin and stuff. So
I think you never know. They're saying they can't find any trace of it in the moment, but you never know. Hopefully, hopefully it won't be one to add to my list. But
I hope not as well. I thought you were much younger, and that's
no.
usually like a big precursor. Like when I went to go see the genetics doctor, she just pinged me as someone with Ehlers-Danlos because of how I was sitting in a chair, because I sit really weird. I sit with my legs crossed all the time, and I don't do yoga or anything, but I'm sitting with my legs crossed right now, like folded.
I'm half crossed.
That.
I'm half crossed, but I am often known for sitting fully cross-legged in office chairs and looking.
See, it's interesting. I hope you don't have it. You know, I'm glad to hear that you don't. You just,
I'm
you
glad
do
I
look
work
really
in my
young.
own. I work in my own office, so it's just me and my partner, and I can sit cross-legged. But if I did that in a big office, I would probably look like a dick. So I probably, you know, I wouldn't do it in like a mass office because I would be that person. But I can do it. I can do it at home. It's fine.
I do it all the time. I don't work in an office or anywhere, so I'm a student at home. So, but I sit with my legs crossed all the time. Even if I'm on the couch, I just cross my legs. I sit on the floor with my legs crossed. It's always a thing I've done, and apparently at my age, I shouldn't be able to do that unless I've been doing yoga. So
that's quite interesting, actually. Yeah, maybe I should look a bit more into it because I do sit cross-legged a lot. Always have.
is your skin stretchy at all? Like, I'm not a doctor or anything. No, there's no like a little bit of elasticity there.
I don't know. I'm doing it now. I'm starting to freak out. It's like, am I?
Have you ever done that in front of a doctor?
I know. Maybe I should. Maybe I should do that. I've got a Zoom tomorrow with my immunologist team. I'll just go like this and see what.
Please start stretching your face.
Yep. He'll probably give me a completely different diagnosis.
Well,
yeah, maybe I should try that.
I know that there's like heart valve issues as well with people that have Ehlers-Danlos. Both of my parents look relatively young, and they're in their 70s, and people think they're in their 50s. So I know that there's connective tissue stuff on both sides of my family. So I got smacked with a amazing.
Maybe I should ask, actually. I think it's time to quiz my dad at some point, just to kind of get a little bit of a history on him again. My dad's not very forthcoming with stuff. You have to kind of pry it out of him. But it might be time, I think, to just ask him some questions.
Yeah, it's something to think about. I don't mean to like creep you out or anything.
No, it's a good idea,
I'm like I said, I'm not a doctor, so I'm not giving medical advice or anything, but
yeah, but you're right, and the correlation is there. I am a little stretchy, little bendy. It's, you know, it comes in handy sometimes, but other times not. Yeah. But no, you're right to it's always good to have, like, again, the full picture of what's going on with you and just being aware of stuff. And even just having these two diagnoses it's kind of life-changing, really.
It is, definitely.
I think, you know, you were saying in a previous video, it's like, I want to kind of give back in some way, and I need to learn how this, you know, fits into my life. But at the same time, I don't want this to become my whole life. You know, I don't want to become my illness. I don't mind talking about it in the right context and helping other people understand it. But I don't want to be that person that only lives through that lens, because, you know, I think, you know, like you've got so many like amazing skills and you're really creative, and, you know, I've got a creative streak as well. And I like doing all that kind of stuff as well. And I want to be known for that kind of stuff too.
Yeah, I understand that. I kind of shied away from getting back into videos for quite some time because I felt like I was just kind of being labeled as that sick chick kind of thing. And that's why I started putting those videos on the channel of me doing makeup, because I was like, this is something else I do.
Which is awesome. It is absolutely awesome. I am so amazed that you can do that. I think anyone that can do that on their own face is amazing. It's just absolutely mind blowing, because I Just as a hobby, I paint portraits, and I kind of got into it just through being ill.
Hmm.
I'm not very good at just sitting and feeling sorry for myself. I needed to do something, and I wasn't
Yeah.
well enough to work. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to just have a go at painting. I've never done painting throughout my teens or anything like that. Music was always my thing, and I just left painting to other people. But I kind of had a go, and I kind of got into it, and I really like painting faces, and I find it fascinating. But I could never do it on an actual face, let alone my own face. So I am amazed that you can do that.
Oh, well, thanks. I think it's because I've been drawing since I was quite young. So I do like, I draw, I paint, and someone suggested me doing it on my face. And so I just, okay. So I started doing it on my face.
I love it. Challenge accepted. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like to challenge myself artistically, and art
Yeah.
is probably the main thing that's got me through everything. So,
It's a lifeline, I think, stuff like
mhm.
that. I think, yeah, I've had music most of my life. I mean, I started piano at 5 and then I did music kind of semi-professionally up until my like early 20s. And it's kept me sane because it's that kind of outlet where you don't have to necessarily articulate everything. So
Yeah.
if you're a complete mess, it can just all come out in some way and it doesn't have to make sense. It's just coming out. And yeah, I guess I get the same kind of thing from art because it's kind
Mhm.
of, it's absorbing, but not mentally taxing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I do it. It's kind of to like release the stuff that I may not be able to talk about at that time
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
may not want to talk about, but just
Yeah,
painting a
exactly.
really fucked up picture makes me feel better.
Whatever works, whatever gets you through the day, you got to do it.
Exactly.
I love it when you do really dark pictures and they're really fucked up and people are expecting a really nice scenery and then you turn it around and you just look at their face and they're like, oh, oh, that's different. And you're like, yeah, it bloody well is.
I
It's how
usually
I
get the
feel.
yeah. I usually get the why can't you paint something pretty? Well, I don't want to.
Oh
So.
yeah, I get that. And I also get the because I live in this tiny, imagine like the most quintessential English village. That's where I live. And you get these old ladies, they're like, oh, you're looking really well today. And I'm like, thanks very much. And I'm sitting there going, oh my God, I'm dying inside. But you're having to smile because they're just such nice little old ladies and you don't want to disappoint them.
Yeah.
And then you go home and paint something really dark and sinister. And you're like, this is the real me. Yeah. But
Oh,
you don't express that in public. Not what I
exactly, exactly.
no,
The
it's
meeting's
great.
gonna end, so if you did want to talk more, I can send you another Zoom link or we can reschedule for another day. It's up to you.
Um, I'm good if you kind of want to take it another time, but I think it's been really great to just say hello and chat and yeah, get your take on stuff.
You as well. It's nice to chat with someone who's going through similar things. I appreciate you being on the podcast.
Thank you very much for having me and sharing your experiences. It's been
Happy
great.
to, and happy to
No
share
worries.
yours as well.
Thank you. Hopefully
You're,
we'll chat again soon.
of course, we can set that up.
Cool.
All right.
Nice one. Well, best of luck with everything and I'll speak to you soon.
Sounds good. Take care.
Cheers. Take care. Bye.
Bye bye.